This is Steve here with the Truth Trumpet and Beth recording. We're at Lisa Gretzky's office. Don't know if she is here today. She's supposed to be, but typical fashion of MPPs, they don't seem to be at the office anymore since the COVID fiasco started. People work remotely now, and that's acceptable. So we'll find out in a bit if she's here. But the reason why we're here is because she's the only MPP that has not responded to correspondence regarding the Greater Essex Windsor District School Board shutting parents out of the school board meetings. Now, most people through the timeline of our society would agree, at least up until now, that parents who have children attending school should have a functional say in the curriculum and the social education to what's going on in these institutions. It used to be curriculum and the social constructs and social education, we'll call it, wasn't a part of the educational platform. Parents used to be in charge of that. Now it seems to be something the school board is trying to spearhead. And where that push is coming from, we'll find out in time. I suspect somewhere above, because this is happening all over the board. So we're going to find out. But as you can see, there are a lot of people that have showed up right now. 3 p.m., Windsor, Dougal Avenue, Dougal Plaza. This is where Lisa Gretzky's office is located, although I drive by many times and I don't see anybody in here. So what work is being done? I'm sure there'll be a spin of always out in the community, engaging. But if you are, why can't we get a hold of you, any of these parents? And just so you know, this looks like a very diverse group of people. And the one thing that I bet everyone has in common here, parents and children. They care and love, probably the most out of everything in this world, that very relationship. Now you hear it getting louder a bit. It's because there are counter-protesters over there. Raise it up. Counter-protesters over there that are trying to engage over here with us. Now we're not here to engage with them. They have their fight that they're fighting, and we are not fighting them. We want our voices heard as parents, and we don't know how many parents there are over on that side. I've tried to engage and discuss in the past, and most people that I do at least begin to talk to on the other side are not parents, ironically. They are people who have a concern like anybody else, misplaced perhaps, but I believe it's AM 800 and some of the local media that are driving this, because there really shouldn't be a counter-protest. Everybody should be uniting that if you're a parent and your child attends a public school, parents who have always had access to a say at board meetings should continue to always have access and a say to the curriculum and education provided for the children in said public school. So, as you can see, we have, again, I stated, a very diverse group of people on our side here that want their rights. I don't know yet, but if you take a look at the people on the other side opposing us, it does not look that diverse, not visually at least. I'm not one to judge in that manner, but the diversity seems to be right here on our side. So you hear passionate ladies passing flyers around. Let's see what this says. Leave our kids alone. It's a simple message where some of the things that have passed with, again, out parental say, is they have put in a policy that children can self-identify. And let me rewind before I begin that. The education is indoctrinating children by planting seeds of ideas of all these cultural things that no children think of. Or if you take the position of the other side, under 1% of children on their own or through their parents maybe, or through their at-home education, wherever they're picking things up, that small under 1% child might have questions sexually or regarding these odd cultural things that are happening in today's day and age. But the majority of all children are simply being children. And they want to learn curriculum, math, science, English, reading, writing, arithmetic. All of these constructs and seeds that are planted into these children's minds are taking away from the essence of their innocence. So, having said that, all might not agree with what I just stated. That's not okay with me, but it's okay according to the law. And I agree with the law. You can have your opinion. But having said that, if the majority of students are innocent little children, not that under 1% that you keep talking about on the other side, that the children need to know because they might be afraid or they might be depressed or suicidal, that is a minute amount of children. The rest are thinking about playgrounds and fun and dirt and mud and all the things children think about. Everybody here wants their voices heard. And in the meetings, they were not being disparaging towards the committee. They were being righteously angry, not yelling, but passionate about their opinion. And just the fact that an opposing opinion is happening, the trustees and the board members shut down the parents' voices from being heard. So that's why you have protests happening now, because you have all these parents, people who actually love their children and other people's children and just want to preserve the essence of innocence in these kids for as long as humanly possible. Because that was God's intent, that is God's intent, and that's what we're here to do. All of us, I believe, we're here to serve God and protect the children, and if that means we have to come out to the MPP's offices so we can maybe get an answer or at least a response of their opinion or what they're going to do for their constituents, because the people here are their constituents who they're supposed to answer to regardless of their own personal opinions. And it seems like the opinions of the trustees, the board members, and the MPPs are taking precedent over the citizens who are the ones who control the vote, are the ones who control the curriculum. We have the power. It's not supposed to be the other way around where we're shut out of the meetings that we fund. So let's take a look here. Hello. We got Rich and on here. What are you guys doing here today?
Well, I'm tired of not being heard, so I'm going to be screaming no more lockouts. This is what I'm going to be screaming because I'm tired of being locked out and not being heard as a parent.
Seems that's a common thread nowadays, in the last few years, lockouts. Lockout of stores, lockout of airplanes, lockout of everything, and now we're locked out of school boards.
Exactly. I'm 100% with you guys. No more lockouts.
I fully agree. We should have freedom for everybody, and everyone should have equal say. Thank you. Sitting. Officers, how you doing today?
How you doing?
Good. Steve with the Truth Trumpet. Can I get a word from you?
I can. Sorry.
Give me 1 minute, okay? Give me 1 minute.
No more lockouts, please. No more. Does it work?
Yep, should be up. Just pull the trigger.
No more lockouts? That's not right. No more lockouts? What should we change?
Gentlemen, can I ask you a question for a minute? What is the reason that you're here?
Just leave our kids alone. To leave our kids alone.
Can you elaborate on that?
Like, because you have to respect us. You have to respect us. And we respect yourself. You want to be trans, that's okay. But like, we don't want our kids to be trans. And at least, okay, when they become in the, like a bigger year, like 18, 19, do whatever you want. But unless their kids don't like change their mind.
Do you have children in the public education school?
No.
Do you have any children?
No.
But you have a parent and
Of course, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Hello, sir. How you doing? Good, how are you? How you doing? What brought you here today?
My kids, my future.
You have children.
Yes, I have children. I have my children's children. My granddaughter. She should not be going through this. This is wrong. This is wrong.
What do you not like about what's happening?
Parents should be involved in every decision. Parents should be involved. That's it. Simple. These are kids. For future.
Absolutely.
This is wrong. Kids alone. Leave on kids alone. Leave on kids
We're here to
alone.
find out. Let's find out what the perspective is. How you doing?
Hate! Stop! Hate! Stop! Hate!
Is it hate stop?
Hate! Stop! Hate!
Stop.
Stop! Hate! Stop!
Hi, I'm Steve with the Truth Trumpet. How are you?
Infowars. Infowars.
What's your message here today? Stop hate.
Stop hate. Yeah, just stop hate.
What do you see? Like, what is hateful that you see?
Well, this is just ignorance and fear. Ignorance and fear.
Okay, can you elaborate on that? Do you know why some of these people or all the people are here for?
I understand.
Do you believe they're against you or this community?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Would you believe it if I told you that's not the reason why they're here? And AM 800 and some of the other stations may have sent a narrative that isn't exactly true?
I know who you are, okay?
Who I am? I'm nobody.
Infowars. Yeah.
I'm Steve with Truth Trumpet.
Okay. Thank you.
So, your shirt has I love life. And children are life. How many children do you have?
I get your insinuation.
No, I'm simply asking how many
I
children.
was a child. I was a child.
I believe everybody here was.
That's correct.
And you're a human. And did you know that all humans in Canada fall under the Canadian Bill of Rights, which is reaffirmed by our Lord and Savior Jesus?
We also signed on to the UN Convention on the
Oh, that's terrible, isn't it? Yes, every human has rights. Children are humans. Just like your shirt. Well, of course, look at her hat. I love life. And children and babies in the room are life as well. Thank you. No. Hi. Can you tell us why you're here? Like? Looks like they don't want to talk, but let's read the signs. Children have rights, I agree. UN Convention on the Rights of Child.
We've never even heard of that, have you? And yet you're a Canadian.
Have I ever heard of the UN? How you doing? What's going on? I'm well. How are you? I didn't recognize you. Yes, we met at the last protest. Yes. So this lady just insinuated as well that I maybe have never heard of the UN Convention of Rights and Children, or as she has, child. There are more than one child in the universe. But that aside, I have heard of the UN, as they are a group of unelected officials that are trying to dictate how we all live our lives. Now, we can all put buzz phrases out like human rights for children and every child matters and all these buzz phrases that, of course, are true. But what do they do about it? What are this community doing about allowing all parents into board meetings so
all voices can be heard, people can debate, and then true, valid, real responses can come into play where the children actually benefit. All the children. Not one group that some call a disparaging group, but we want all children to be elevated, not single out one group for the other or elevate one group by diminishing another group. So having said that, I'm trying to get comments from anybody on this side so we can further understand, and hopefully we can bridge the gap.
You know what, Steve? I don't think this is the right place to do that, though. It's always emotionally charged at these things, right?
Well, it is.
You and I spoke last time. I ended up like right in the middle of it all, and I got real heated. I said shit I didn't want to say or regret saying after other people. I'm sure there's people that felt the same way the way they talked about me after. Maybe one day you and I can sit down, have a beer or coffee, and we can have that conversation. But really, it's just, well, can't have it here, you know?
It's difficult. I can probably agree, but with the Lord Jesus Christ, anybody can be someone that can de-escalate instead of escalating the problem. So I'm here for love, and I'm not personally yelling. Some people on both sides are yelling at each other, but you can see a common thread is nobody wants hate, and nobody wants the children to be harmed. So there has to be a middle ground where we don't harm all the children.
Nothing to do with you. It's about the children. It's about the children.
Yes. So I would like to, I'm going to try to speak to some parents now and see how they are. It was nice talking to you.
We'll see you then.
The kids, right? All we have two different things anyway.
This is freedom, Steve, and he's on our side.
How are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Steve with the Truth Trumpet.
I'm going to grab the mic.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to say? What brought you here today?
Well, the most important thing, we are the parents. We are the ones who raised those kids. We are the most people who love their children, not anybody else. We cannot accept to replace the authority of the parents with a different authority. They will not. The Board of Education, they don't love our children more than we love them. So we are here for the care of our children. We don't want anybody to do any legislation that will harm our kids in the school. Keep the school a place for education. It's not a place just to, propagating a certain agenda to serve a certain group of people who considered as the minority in this country. We are here for Canada. We are here for the freedom. We are here for our own children to be in a healthy environment. That's why we are here.
And would you say that there's a diverse group of people on this side of concerned parents?
Definitely, as you see here, you can see the diversity in this group here from all background. They are here come for the children. So those people, they say, I was talking to them and they say we are for the children. I say you have a different, way than us. We are the parents. We are the one who care for our kids. So open the door for us. Let us, have the meeting with the Board of Education. Why the Board of Education lock the door on us? They don't let us even hear what's going on there. So it's a conspiracy agenda or what?
Well, it's never been done before, but I'm not sure if you know, but ever since the emergency orders were put into place for the COVID lockdowns, it seems the government and elected officials sideswipe rules and laws and change and amend policies to suit fear tactics under the guise of safety or fear.
Yes, I cannot really hear you. I'm just, police is interfering. Now, if they allow me to say a few words, I will.
Sure.
Okay. Since the police is here, now I have the more freedom to speak. Okay, they were not here. So, what's the question again, please? You say something I didn't want to pay attention.
I'm trying to remember what my question was now. It was long-winded as I usually am. But if ever since the COVID lockdowns,
Yes.
they have used the Emergency Act, emergency orders, to amend policy to implement fear in a way, as in a guise, as a disguise of safety, in order to shut out people from meetings or for them to not be in their offices and work remotely from home. So they're very hard to access now, and it almost seems like they're changing policy in order to shut the citizens out of the say on anything, let alone just parents here.
Clear. This is what we have. I look at it is not only this group. I mean, here, as you say, the diversity and all this here. We actually, what we are saying, that's the blocking. Make a block between us and them. Parents, they want to see what's going on there. As they have a legislation, they have a new policy. I mean, it's harming our kids, it's harming our country, and harming our society. We have to say, we are in this country here. I have myself 9 kids, and I have 9 grandkids. They go to the public school.
That's beautiful.
I have, well, 9 kids and 9 grandkids. So I care for them. I've been in Canada 42 years. Here to see this, my kids was raised in a very peaceful, environment. Okay? Now look at what's going on. What's going to happen to our society? What's going to happen to Canada? What's going to happen to the country that we love? And left our homeland to replace it with the most beautiful homeland here. We're very genuine about this. We are the genuine people behind their kids.
Do you feel that you were lied to? People that came here as immigrants were lied to about.
It is a big change. It's a big lie. I don't know. They are, 10% of the society, 5% of the society. Those who are hiding and close the door on us. You are representing us. We voted for you to stand for us. Don't lock the door on us. We like to talk to you as a human, as people who love the country. We are not here to fight. We are not here to create violence or anything. Just please listen to us.
Just want our voices heard.
Exactly. Oh.
Thank you very much. And your name again, sir?
Abdullah Hamoud. I'm the Imam of Al Hijra Mosque. Okay, I'm just on Howard, 1500 Howard. I'm the Imam of the Muslim community of Windsor for the last 42 years. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Give me some time.
I'm in there here to shade you guys can keep doing your thing. Just off the road. Peacefully, over here, just off the road.
Sir, how you doing? No comment.
We've seen him for many years now at protests. I was just going to ask if he's tired of being at all these protests and wishes maybe some of these issues got resolved by the government, the people who employ or fund them, and we actually fund. But as usual, no resolutions for a while or ever. Nothing gets done. Things get kicked down the curb. But maybe today, Lisa Gretzky will be here and address the crowd. Let's see what a good citizen here with a beautiful shirt has to say. Let's interrupt.
As a parent, you don't come between me and my child.
But my parents didn't come through for my siblings that way. My siblings are trans and gay.
At the same time, it can't be a school policy to keep secrets from parents. That in general is wrong. I think you're gonna agree to that, right?
I think it's
They can't
protecting the children.
drive, drink, smoke.
What children is it protecting? All of them?
The gay kids, the trans.
How many? If you could make a percentage of a classroom, how many would fall in that category?
I don't think that's. I think that's like a gotcha.
Well, if you're going to make policy for everybody, but for a small group in that classroom, then aren't you indoctrinating the rest, but while looking after the one instead of trying to elevate everyone?
Here, everyone bringing their kids here. Is this not pushing a message onto their own kids?
To let them be kids.
It's the same thing.
Well, the message is to let them be kids.
Kids also includes allowing them to express their sexual orientation.
As far as I'm concerned,
You don't.
no, children don't have.
They don't.
Children don't. Children have biological orientation. Children don't think about sex. Children don't think about sex. Now, is there an exception to the rule? One that was abused, possibly.
This might be a personal question. I know it's different today in the age of the internet, but when did you start watching porn?
Well, it is different today because there's the internet.
I know tons of kids who started watching porn in grade school. Majority of my friends did.
I'm just here interviewing as well. So, what's your name?
Steve with the Truth Trumpet.
Okay, I've got a mic. We're all mic'd up. We're good. So you're with the Truth Company.
Yeah.
So this is
The Truth Trumpet.
okay, but so this is a religious sort of perspective on this.
No, it's simply there's lots
I'm
of
asking
there's
your perspective.
There's a diverse group of people here. This isn't a religious
space.
No, this is parents coming together from all different groups.
If we have to call into religion, there's a lot of
there are Christians here. There are definitely Christians here, and they're Muslims
by religious people all over the world.
Yeah, well,
if you're here supporting that, then I guess we should talk about that.
There are people who are molested by all authoritarians
a lot
of
of
the world.
sex that they probably never wanted to encounter either.
Again, what percentage of children do you think are molested?
Do you have a doctorate in any of this, or do you just come from a blog?
I asked the question. Could you respond?
Probably a hell of a lot more percentage than you believe in.
Do you think it's more than 50% of children? So this gentleman thinks that more than 50%
a sexual being?
Yes, go ahead. I don't.
Oh, you give it a timeline? Is it when it's 13?
No, I mean, you can have a child to be sexual if they're abused, or if the parents introduce sex to them, or the educational institution. Well, it is now.
Get into sex on their own.
So he's talking about biology as well. I'm just interested.
Kids get into sex on their own on the internet without telling their parents all the time. It's not.
If parents don't restrict their internet access, yes.
So there wasn't this issue before the internet?
Well, you had things like when you went to a movie, there'd be rated R, right? Rated X, even. There would be different ratings. The exception to the rule, yes.
Always found ways.
The exception to the rule.
Porn closet, anything. Kids are not sheltered from sex.
The ones who have good parents are.
They're trying to remove themselves from you just a little bit.
Come back and listen so we're not causing, an argument with people.
So what are you here? What is your argument to this?
I don't have an argument. My argument is
Well, what do you?
my plea, like
the
most
purpose here about the either the lockout or some sort of brainwashing.
Yeah, would you let me speak and finish a sentence?
No.
Go ahead.
Well, then what? Go? No.
Go.
Thank you. Most of the people here are parents. Whether they're Christian, Muslim, let me finish my sentence, please. Whatever denomination they might be, or atheists. They're here because they have children and they want their voices heard on what the curriculum is and educational profile that happens within the school system that they send their children to.
Okay. I spoke to 2 or 3 people over here who actually send their children to Catholic school. So this is about the public school. So I'm not sure why they're here when there is actually
The Catholic school follows almost word for word the same doctrine, and they're just a little bit behind.
but it
They're
is
progressive as well.
but it is a school that is based in a doctrine that is supported by you.
No.
Okay, so you would rather try and take over a public school?
No, just as you stated, and you stated, because you're not wrong. There have been people in positions of power in churches, right, and other religious places.
Like,
Yeah, Joe Biden. Right, exactly.
I'm gonna grab him by the pussy, said Trump.
Said
I think.
Well, if you're straight, that's what you do.
If you're straight, that's what you do.
Crudely,
So this
crudely,
is so
yes, that's crudely put, but that's what one male does with another in the state. Yes, and that was a part of the conversation that was made public. But
you're in a public space.
we're not talking about that. Okay, so
No,
I'm telling you, you're right, and I'm telling you, you're right. There have been priests, preachers, altar clergymen, yes, that have abused their power and sexualized, abused children.
Printed word,
Of course, I agree. There have been.
So thousands of years of this.
Yes.
You're here telling us it's only the internet right now.
What I'm saying is that even though there are people in positions of power, whether it's religious or political, that abuse those positions of power against the rules that were set, supposed to be just. The rules of the Bible or the Quran.
In the public school board.
I told my child that.
Option to fill out a form so they are exempt from anything religious or sexual. They could be removed from the prayer in the morning or the national anthem if you're a Jehovah's Witness. This has been going on for years. I grew up in a town like that. Wheatley.
Have you read the updated policy?
Yeah. They've also increased the age for most of the sexual learning farther than it was even before, even more conservative, and you're fighting against that. You gotta win. And we don't even know how to grin and say thank you.
The win is to not sexualize children. That's the win.
If you had a home that these kids could go to and discuss things with their parents, you would probably see things a little bit different.
5-year-olds do not think about sex unless someone has introduced it, like the public school board.
Or every like Christmas show or like Valentine's Day like ad or anything like that. That's not sexualizing, not children, but just sexualizing in general.
I don't know what you're talking
And those
about.
cards, those cards where they spot colored the red roses, where that poor little boy was giving his like girlfriend at 3 years old a present for Valentine's Day.
I don't know that card.
You don't go into like a Hallmark? Dude,
I don't go to Hallmark, no.
get out of your silo.
Okay. Let's go take a look. And just so you know, Dryers is here as well. They've come to cover it. All right.
I couldn't hear a word.
Did you go to school in Gretzky County? Yeah. Okay. No, they're all sitting to talk on camera. Tell me what you think of it's like there. I would like to know.
It's difficult to get a conversation with someone on the other perspective because it seems they just want to shout something. So we'll try. Would you like to express why?
I would prefer that my rights not get violated and that kids not get beat for coming out as trans to their parents.
And what rights specifically are you talking about?
Well, okay. I believe that your protest is meant to be about like how not outing trans kids to their parents for the education system is secrecy, right?
Secretly, yes, and not really to push some of the stuff on all the kids.
So that base, right? Why do you think that parents that might beat, might kill, might harm their kids should know this information?
Well, you don't know, first of all, who might that one person be in a giant group of people.
Tell no one.
Well, so the perspective it seems like, and tell me if I'm wrong, is we would rather take all of those innocent children, and there might be one or two that are thinking a certain way, right? But the rest are thinking about playing soccer and not that. But we want to take the group of everybody and make them understand what you want to understand.
What are you on about? We just don't want trans kids like outed to their parents. That's literally all we're here for.
But don't you think parents have a right to know what's going on in their child's life?
Yeah, kids aren't property. Like, most of you would not treat your kid well if they came out as trans. Let's be real here.
Would what?
Most of you would not treat your kid well if they came out as trans. I'm talking as someone who's had...
Well, okay. Do you have parents? I'm sorry.
What's up?
You have parents.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you believe your parents love you?
They're progressive. They've accepted me since I came out.
That's not what I asked. Do you believe they love you?
Yes, but at the same time, you believe you love your kids. You know who else believes they love their kids? Someone who gets drunk and beats them every night.
I believe every parent believes they love their child. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule, right?
Now,
So you have.
may I ask you a question? How many people regret transition statistically?
I don't remember the exact number.
1%.
No, it's.
You can say it's more, but then you're just wrong. Like, wrong.
The suicide rate is one of the highest amongst people, children especially, who have transitioned, and then within 3 years regret and understand.
The Swedish literally are quoting a study, which is the Swedish study, which actually travels through 50-year-old trans people.
That's going off of a base study of 3 people.
Of how?
And 3.
No.
3.
So you admit the Swedish study
Over a decade ago, there's barely been any. If we're taking now, just like, okay, let's give an example. You may have taken an experimental mRNA shot or 2, right? What are the long-term effects of that shot?
I have a question for you, okay?
No, before I answer your question, I will. What are the long-term effects of an mRNA shot?
Is that what this protest is about? Can we stay on topic, please?
I will, and I'll answer your question. Just humor me. What are the long-term effects of these new experimental mRNA shots?
Humor me. What is the point of your question?
Well, since you're not going to answer, no, well, I do, since all of you people decided to yell at everyone that from a high position that you have a right to wear a mask and to get shots, but that aside. So let me bring it around right to what you're talking about, and I'll answer. So, how can you know what the long-term effect of a child who laws have just passed recently to give chemical castrations, to give alterations and physical transformations? How can we know the long-term effects of those children when the beginning stages right now? Everything is based off of models and projections, just like COVID.
Sure. Okay. One, turn the mic to me, because one, you know that isn't true. You know that we've done long-term studies of HRT since the 50s, and actually
Provide a website.
we've been doing these studies since early 20s Germany. And do you know who burned those studies? The Nazis. Yeah. So we've known the data. It takes 5 years for these to take long-term effects. Kids don't begin like major puberty.
So we agree the Nazis did experiments on people, transforming them in weird, odd ways.
Bro, it was a pre-Nazi institution.
And now we're doing it in a loving way here. Isn't it great? Just like forcing mandatory vaccinations in a loving, safe way.
You're not even listening to what I'm saying. The institution,
I'm repeating what you said.
The leaders of the institution were killed by the Nazis. You dumbass. The leaders of the Sexual Institute for Study in Germany were killed by the Nazis.
They were also funded by them.
No, they weren't.
The German political party.
I want the German you know, like world.
The Socialist political party. Do you know what the Socialist political party in Germany was?
My lord. How about the KPD? The KPD. You're gonna go on the whole National Socialism rant, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
You are aware that, like, I believe in a free market, right?
Free market?
Yes.
By that you mean our economy?
What's up?
By that you mean our economy?
Yeah, so why are you talking about socialism anyway?
Well, because that's what the Nazis were, who conducted many experiments on people, and as you said, when they were done, they eradicated you.
I know, it's fun.
Is there?
No, I already talked.
I want anyone watching this is going to be edited out. This is going to be edited the fuck out. Oh shit, it's live. Google the Institute for Sexual Study and see how wrong this motherfucker is.
Google what?
The Institute for Study. You did a fucking joke, didn't you?
Institute
Of Sexual Study.
what?
It's not in the website. It's in the 1920s, you dumbass. Have you been listening?
I'm just trying to help you out so people can go. I'm just trying to give you as much of a platform.
Yeah, totally, bro. Totally, bro. Can you take off your hat for a second? Oh, okay, damn, you have hair. Unlike 99% of the people here.
Look, I appreciate you talking. Thank you.
So here's a little bit of a quote. When our time comes, there won't be reason needed for the terror, Marx.
There won't be reason for
when our time comes, there won't be reason needed for the terror, Marks.
Well, there's no terror. We want everyone to be happy. We just know that through body dysmorphia, it's not a happy ending. I'll leave you with one last thing. No matter what you think or feel, I love you, and Jesus loves you. And remember that. Great. Jesus loves you. Then practice it. Start practicing and shed your sins. Shed your sins. Well, what you're doing here right now is sin if you look in the Bible. Thank you.
They don't want to talk to me.
Thank you.
We gotta get away from here.
Okay. Back to the side of morals and ethics.
I think it's because of all the chants.
So it looks like there's lots of people here. Olivia.
You see the sign that says your children are not your property?
I'm sure I didn't see it personally. But I'm sure
Okay, you should get the megaphone and ask them whose property are they? Because you think they're your.
well, most of them don't have children. It's hard to talk to them.
It's people that laugh like you guys. Even if you had kids, your kids are grown up by now. What are you even doing here? Is this recorded? Oh, okay.
No, it's over there. It might be picking up the audio here. You're a parent. Where are your children located?
Where are they located?
Yeah, are they going to school?
Yep. Catholic board.
I'm not asking which school, but other than the Catholic board, which
Catholic
is
board.
just slightly behind where
Gotta get my good
the public sector's at, with policy, that is. They're not too far behind because they're progressing along the same pattern, which is unfortunately what is confusing some of the people on the other side, because I believe that's what some of them are saying. Like, you have people in the Catholic denomination or in the Catholic school board who are okay with it. So you must be hateful, right? They don't understand that it's the Catholic boards that are caving to some of the pressures and not following the doctrine of the Bible, which is what they're supposed to be following. And I'd say that's my opinion, but it's also the truth. So you've taken provisions, at least your kids aren't in the public sector.
Yeah, and thankfully their school isn't a far leftist school that's pushing this stuff yet. I'm just hoping it's a positive not pushing this, but there isn't yet.
Well, and it's good that there are some schools that are at least not pushing it as bad as some of the other ones, which should go to show some parents where a lot of the really left-leaning teachers and faculty are located at. Maybe some of these people here can provide some kind of data points down the road as they come together as to a ranking system of most leftist of schools down to most conservative, I guess, if that even exists in the public sector.
Amen.
I don't think it does.
My thing is too, they always talk about, right, white privilege, blah blah blah, but their whole movement is white privilege. Like, it's so like, I'm like, buddy, you're literally anti-protesting a bunch of Muslims.
Yeah, well,
you think they have the same rights as you? I don't know.
That's one of the points I kind of saw at the beginning too.
Yeah.
It seemed there's a very diverse group on this side of the protest, and it doesn't seem that diverse. Again, I'm only using my eyes and talking to a few people, but I also don't want to ask where they're from, because that's none of my business, and it doesn't really matter in this. What matters is if you want to protect your children and how you want to protect your children, because the one overwhelming unifying thought that even people on the other side delusionally think is protecting the children. they delusionally think they're protecting them by sexualizing them because they think all children should be sexualized or sexually affirmed. But affirmation doesn't have to happen in this country at all because we have Canadian Bill of Rights, which is reaffirmed again by our Lord's good book and gives us the laws that we can all function off of that made this land what it is today. So they are fighting for children's rights as well, but they're fighting for the smallest minority of children. What happens to the rest of those children in a group? As I tried explaining, if there's 30 children in a class and there's one child who feels the way they feel, by presenting all the education and information that they desire, isn't that planting seeds that weren't there before that moment in the majority of those children?
Exactly.
Which,
like I say, when I was growing up, I was a tomboy. I did like boys. I did, maybe the other girls were like, oh, so-and-so. I wasn't like that then.
I always had crushes on tomboys.
Right?
I always had crushes on
with the boys, and I wasn't thinking about that. But I can only imagine if I would have grown up at this time, if I would have been tricked or
you
to think such.
They would have brought you down to a counselor's office, and a counselor would have educated you on the way you feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what we want, I think, and that's the overwhelming consensus, is we want all children to be elevated, not disparage the majority in this case, while elevating a small minority of children that might have certain thoughts that do need to be addressed. But still, first and foremost, I believe it should be the parents that address those thoughts. You agree?
I agree.
All right. Thank you. Now, excellent. I appreciate it. If I may call you, what's your name? If I may.
I don't know my name.
Oh. Thank you, O, for speaking with us at the Truth Trumpet. Now we'll go around and talk to some more people. Do a little walk around first and talk to some more people. I'll go around, stick the mic in. But you go up here. You go up here, I'll stick the mic.
10 years ago.
That. Okay, let me just grab the camera.
Are you just available for a couple quick comments?
Sure.
Okay, awesome.
That will go live just for unedited versions.
Okay. If I could just get you to say your name if you're comfortable doing that.
Sure. Steve Gifford with the Truth Trumpet.
Can I get you to spell your name out, sorry?
STEVEGIFFORD.
Awesome. Can you explain a little bit about why you're here today?
Well, I'm here, like you, talking to people and trying to find out their rationale and reason for being here. I happen to have an opinion that agrees with people on this side of the fence, if we're to say that. But I also want to gain the perspective because the ultimate goal is to bring people together, number one, and to elevate the children and not harm the children. Having said that, the reason that the people are here, the very diverse group of people that are here on this side, they're here to have their voices heard as parents. Because as I think you're aware, and most people are aware now, the greater Windsor Essex School Board has shut out the parents. Now they've stated in fear, I don't believe they said of their life, but in fear of threats or feeling harmed. The problem with that is when you're someone like me and others here that have attended the board meetings, trying to ask questions and make valid, rational, factual points about policy that happens to disagree with the current policy or narrative, the board members and trustee take that as harsh or offensive when it used to be a difference of opinion. So parents want their voices heard, and they want to have their voices heard on the curriculum that's being taught. Most importantly, there's certain curriculum for children that are of tender age that are being presented to all of the children under the guise that it's stowed away for just a particular minority group. And if that was the case, I personally am not saying I agree or disagree with that, but we know for a fact that that's not what is happening in the public sector in some of the schools. And if it's progressing in some of the schools, it most likely, according to history, will progress and spread to the rest because policy spreads like that to all under its umbrella. So the parents here want their voices heard. And before you talk about it, before we get to the table about what they want it heard about, as I just started explaining, they have to be let in to be heard.
So a lot of the signs that are out here are saying to, leave our kids alone, no secrets in schools. I talked to a couple of people on the other side kind of saying that, that school should be a safe space for kids to be, and that if they don't feel comfortable telling their parents certain aspects, that they shouldn't have to do that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if we hearken back to anywhere in history of our society, if you take that out of the context you're speaking and insert any other context that you can think of, with a stranger, with children, and talking about sex of any kind, or providing surgery or providing drugs to children under a different context, that would be unacceptable in anybody's mind. And we're coming from the exact same position that if it's not okay to present certain things to children under a certain age, and it wasn't okay to present this to children in the same respect throughout history, something has changed currently that isn't good. And according to the Bible, which hasn't changed.
And you mentioned at the beginning that you were kind of trying to understand both sides of that. Is that correct?
Yes.
So have you been talking to people from the other side also, or more so on this side?
I've attempted to, and there's been a couple that have spoken. But again, the second that they hear an opposing opinion or view, and again, not in an argumentative way, not in an angry way, just a disagreeable way, they want to shut down the conversation, and that seems to be what the political spectrum has turned into really over the last few years since the COVID pandemic. Is there's a narrative that's being pushed, and anything that dissents from that narrative is shut down and demonized and censored. And a straw man is built of that group or person and demonized without any retort.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. No problem. Thanks. Nice to meet you, Megan.
Nice to meet you. Well, we met before at the health unit probably a couple times, but
Probably.
Steve, have a good one.
Thank you.
Greg. Have to make her way back.
He might.
I wonder if he's talking to the other people.
He might.
Jeremy.
Is Jeremy over there right now?
He was. I wanted to film him, but the people didn't want to talk to him.
Yeah, that's the common thread. So we're trying to find Jeremy Palco and see what he's saying here.
Got enough?
Good to see you. Just a local awesome real estate agent.
Thank you. I'm gonna give you a follow. What's your name?
Gregory Moore.
All right, thank you.
Here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Gregory.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You know who I'm calling?
Yeah, I've been fighting this fight for a very, very long time. 10 years ago, Kathleen Wynne was doing this garbage.
Yeah.
We were fighting it back then. There was a guy named Ben Levin that wrote this curriculum. Well, he went to jail for pedophilia.
Of course.
Yes.
Ben Levin, look it up.
Look it
Pedophilia.
up. He's anyhow, Doug Ford promised us that he would get rid of this, and he didn't. Now it's worse than ever, and we're more divided than ever now because, you know, this is nonsense. But parents just want to be left alone. They don't want you to take these. Look at this beautiful kid. They don't want you to take this beautiful kid and try to tell him he's
He's not my property, though, right?
yeah, or he's a girl, or you know, like this is crazy.
Or a cat.
Whatever. Leave our kids alone. Just leave our kids alone. You know, we just want to be left alone.
Right.
And but they don't want to leave us alone. And they.
16, drink till you're 19, but you can do
That's
it.
true.
You can change your sex at 8.
That's a good point. Yeah, you can't get a license until you're
Whenever they
16, but you can do all kinds of other stuff before you're 16.
That's a point I was just making to the Bell lady there, that in a context she's stating about protecting kids by providing them with this information, I'm stating it that you can't insert anything else like drinking. There's a certain age, movies, put any other context together and you would protect the children from that, not provide it for them.
Well, I'll tell you, 15 years ago, I would have been on that side because I went to liberal arts school, and I was scared to come home. Montreal for a long time. I was scared to come home and tell my dad what was going on because they normalized everything that was happening. And we thought he was insane. We thought he was insane. I would fight with him and argue with him. And now we have the best relationship because I understand what is truly going on and all the corruption.
Interesting is I tell people this, because I was a liberal too. When you're young, you're usually a liberal. But when you grow up, and especially after you have children, you become a conservative. Normally, I don't know what happened over here, but normally people really want to protect their kids.
Absolutely.
So when you have kids, that changes a lot of things.
Something tells me a lot of government funding might be on the other side over there.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, what are we here on earth if we're not have kids take care of each other? I mean, I don't understand. What are they going to do when there's nobody left?
Well,
Their side, there's going to be nobody left.
well, that's it. They're going to try to create their own, and that's not going to work out that well. So, what are you the parents
Yeah.
of this beautiful child?
Yes, yeah.
And what are your plans as you observe the landscape of what's happening?
Well, I have a few friends that have kids his age, and they send, to school. I'll never be sending Theo to school like this ever because I wouldn't send myself to school.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. To me, this is the devil's work, and I wouldn't put my kid to involve.
Between the vaccinations and the this kind of BS, there's no reason for me to send them to school because that's all they want to push down parents' throats nowadays. If your kid's unvaccinated, they literally call you once a month to say, "Oh, we noticed your kid's unvaccinated. Why don't we get them in there to put it in?" You could say no 100 times. They'll keep calling you.
Well, as you may be aware, in the policies that have been amended now within the school board, because of this particular topic, it can be used universally as well, right? Just like with the COVID lockdowns now, they can kind of pull some of the same measures that weren't acceptable to the public beforehand. So in the policy, they've stated that if a child feels they identify as something or someone else, that they can keep that information from the parents. The school will assist and aid in keeping that information from the parents.
To me, that shows that the teachers have not done their job, because if any student is feeling doubt within themselves, that means that they're depressed, something's unwell, and they need help. And about giving help isn't assisted suicide or any other measure, changing your, that is, to me, like, I can't even process that thought. To me, if I see a child that needs help, I'm going to help them in any way I can.
Well,
not, it's.
You see that it could potentially be creating a future giant problem for these children that grow up.
Absolutely.
So I've actually heard there was a story of a guy in BC that was trying to speak against his daughter
of taking the hormones and stuff because she wanted to go for a transition. So he was speaking against it. He actually ended up in jail because he was speaking against it. So in court, right? So he was actually found wrong. And it's almost like the same policies as if your child comes down with cancer. The parent has no ruling on what you're going to do with the child at that point. You could try alternative routes, but they won't let you if it's a child, right?
You bring up a great point because, as you stated, you went to liberal arts school. You were liberal. You know, I think we all, like you stated, were liberal because, as you either started to see or have seen now, the way the mainstream, the government, the media push that liberal agenda, everything has a nice, beautiful facade on it that sounds nice, right? Like everything that their signs say over there, stop the hate. Well, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I want to stop the hate too.
Kind of like when they were pushing the shots, right? Oh, everybody needs help. What were they saying?
Protect grandma. Don't you care?
Protect everybody.
Guilt, making
Yeah.
guilt trips.
Well, and if you aren't wearing the mask, if you don't do the things, then by default, they don't say it. By default, you're not the good person who's doing the right thing, right? So that's the liberal or now leftist, because it's the.
I would have considered myself libertarian before, but now I've never been so conservative in my life.
And let me ask, it almost sounds like it is, but are you believers in God?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Amen. And is it starting to seem to you that there might be a need for a saving of souls before just changing politicians' minds? Because
yes.
I don't think necessarily that our words can change their hearts or minds. It has to be something deeper, like the Bible.
Yes, yes.
Precisely. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I actually feel like
very much.
one more point. I actually feel like a lot of the things that are wrong with this world is just a takeover of it's evil takeover. A lot of our politicians and governments, it seems like they're coming from a position of completely opposite of faith and God. Like it feels like it's just a complete opposite. It's coming from, we want to say Satan, but evil, right?
If you do the research, you will find out you're correct. It is coming from something above. Our governments are puppets only to not a higher power, but a higher authoritarian, unelected group of officials that are trying to run the show.
Absolutely. They also, they own a lot of, the banking systems. It goes back central bank, where all of our countries are in this debt. It goes back to them. Like they're the ones that are controlling these policies with a lot of, there's a lot of, I don't know if I should say a lot of their names, but but we can go on. We could go on, but we won't. We just want to fix this because we don't want
we don't
we don't want our children to be
indoctrinated
and all this crap and then sexualized at such a young age. That's basically it.
That's the overwhelming consensus that I'm getting here is we just want our children to be children until they grow into their own natural milestones.
No hate. I want them to do whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. They can be whoever they want. Just don't impose it on my child at such a young age.
Amen.
Know?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you. What's
Thank
your
you.
name?
Steve.
Steve. Nice to
Nice to
meet
meet
you. Madeline, Dylan, Sophia.
Madeline, Dylan, Sophia. Nice to meet you. What's your name?
Theo.
Tell him your name.
Theo?
Tell him your name.
Theo.
His name is
Theodore.
Theodore.
Yeah. You're going to be a champion one day. Well, that's where I got started, but the Truth Trumpet is where it's at now here. Yeah. Now that we know that Canada is censoring information and news coming in, we have to have our own. So if you'd like to look up at the Truth Trumpet,
okay.
Rumble.
Oh, we will.
And save our supplements.
Yes, exactly. It's supplements, vitamins.
Big time.
Another thing the loving government is trying to take away from us while pushing the petrol pharmaceutical on us.
That's right.
Under attack on anyone who didn't take the shot because they're spraying our skies, taking our supplements. Just look around, right?
Hitting us from all fronts.
Blocking the sun. It's insanity.
Actually crazy.
Well, the more people are waking up because I see your face now and I didn't see it 3 years ago.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Take care.
You too.
Or,
Continue, please.
Sounds like a healthy conversation.
It is. We'd like to just keep it.
How
that
come
way.
nobody wants? Don't you want to have people that view to have your opinion so maybe we can come to a better understanding?
Yes, I do.
That's all we want.
But maybe you ask me first.
Sure. Let's start over. Hi, I'm Steve. Can I interrupt the conversation and just?
But you're not. Can you just ask?
Go ahead.
Filming Steve. I'm filming Steve. Yes. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
I'm Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa.
I'm talking to Louise. She wasn't done her thought though, and I'd like her finished.
Absolutely.
And when I'm done talking to Louise, then if you would like to talk with me and record it, I'm open to that.
Well, I can do that, but I was hoping to organically get in on the conversation you're having because it's probably related to this, and you won't repeat yourself again.
It was an organic conversation until a stranger shoved a microphone in my face.
And I apologize. I just wanted to lightly put that in so we could pick up the public conversation that was
This is
happening.
exactly what happened with the board.
What do you mean?
They disallowed us to have a voice like him. The public, the board's working for the public, for the parents. The parents are the major players in this. It's the parents. And you violated the charter, and that's freedom of expression. And if you read the charter, it also says to be able to criticize the government. But they cut us off in our tracks, kicked us out of the building, and then canceled it completely. It was a violation. That's why I'm here because of that. So my
understanding was that was a safety decision based on a previous meeting.
Call it what you want.
You know what they're going to say?
It's
They were going to
wrong.
say because it was for disgraceful and disrupted behavior.
Okay. Could it have been?
On the part of when you are shut out, the only way you're going to get heard is to raise your voice.
First, you weren't shut out. There was a meeting that people were welcome into.
Yes, that's true. What happened was an opposing opinion came from parents that didn't agree with the narrative or the curriculum that was being pushed. And just by disagreeing in the era that we're in, some people feel threatened by an opposing view being spoken.
Yeah.
And they chose to shut it out and use the terminology of threatening. Maybe they identified as being threatened. It seems that that was the case, but nobody was threatened as there were no charges laid on anybody. And it was filmed, so if there was threats, there would be some kind of charges or at least detainment of somebody at the meeting.
Do you agree that parents should be shut out, or the public, from a school board meeting?
Only if they pose a threat. If it is a safety reason, I do think parents should be shut out.
Would it change?
Seem like a threat at all? You don't. Obviously, you don't. I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't know what the perceived threat was. I understand that a lot of people are frustrated that they don't feel like they can share their viewpoints on this, or even maybe get clarifying information. Because I've talked to a lot of people today who don't seem to have facts, like what's actually going on in the classroom, and they need that. And where can they go to get that, right? So I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But I do know that that meeting wasn't a government meeting, and that's why I do think it is better that this was happening here, right? This is
They are officials.
Where is she?
The
Where is she?
me. What did I just say? That was disinformation.
Exactly what you just.
About what's being taught in the schools, what's being presented to the.
I didn't.
Well, but when you have progressive people that have been indoctrinated over time, like some of the activists that are teachers now, they feel empowered to that it's their right that children should know this, so they push things.
Let's stop for it.
Developed by the Ontario Ministry of Education, which is a conservative government at the moment. And this is what we are being instructed to teach. And we had several people come and talk to us and say certain things are being taught, and we can pull up the specific grade level curriculum and show you exactly what is being taught in each grade. And it's been very informative for some people. Because I think that there is a misconception about things that are being taught in our Ontario curriculum. This is online. This is completely accessible to everybody.
But if someone has a disagreement with what's in there, how do they speak to the board?
You are able to
Watch via Zoom.
child from the health curriculum classes. A letter goes home that says exactly what's being taught in that grade level. It gives you the dates and times that that is being taught, and you are given options to either remove your child from the class not send them to state.
But if that's on paper.
Ontario curriculum.
That's on paper, and that doesn't actually happen. And I know for a fact.
My,
Well, I know for a fact because I've recorded things happening at schools that were told to parents.
child be involved in that lesson.
You just want to get out the message that this has nothing to do with your community. It's about the children, and it's about parents being locked out, and we shouldn't be. Period. We elect these people. They work for us. They're accountable to us. Period.
Yeah, you elect these people. You don't elect me.
No, the school trustees we elect as well. They are accountable to us. That's true. They cannot just close down the meeting because they don't like the discussion. Threats, being on words, throw some thick skin. You decided to get into public sector. Those are things you're going to have to deal with.
I think thick skin is something that has been lost nowadays. It seems like on a fair amount of people. It should be something we all have, that way we can come to the table with things and not be so offended so quickly.
Yes, sure, and actually engage in conversations without shouting and just with talking, for sure.
That used to happen a lot more, well, in eras that I don't remember. It seems like people could have political and religious conversations and not hate each other at the end of that conversation. Agree to disagree.
You think that was the case before?
With a lot of people, yeah. Well, just like politics, before Trump era, people used to be able to talk about opposing political views and not want to go to war.
I think that things got very extreme during that era. So we're talking about the middle ground. We got further away from that middle ground, right? And when there's a bigger divide, it's harder to get back to that place where you can have just a dialogue with someone.
And it seems for me, the Lord has been something that has brought me closer to being able to speak with people without having some of that anger that I see a lot of people on that side. They're shouting on this side, but there's a lot of anger, it feels like, on that side, especially when
why do you think that is?
Well, because they feel that there are children, and unfortunately they feel the numbers are wrong. Now they think that there's a large number of children in each classroom that feel a certain way, and they need to have information or they're going to grow up and have a lot of mental troubles. And we're coming from the side that the majority of children have parents who love them, parents who work, parents who want the best for their children. And of course, there's exceptions to the rules of children who have different thoughts, who go through different things in life, maybe even who don't have that great of parents. That's called the exception to the rule. And we shouldn't put the baby in the bathwater, so to speak, and have one thing taught to the majority of children or all the children when it's...
What do you think that one thing is? Like what you're saying is one thing taught to all kids.
Well, anything sexual.
Okay, anything sexual.
Yes, anything sexual.
Do you have children?
I do.
Do they like comic books? Like
Comic book? My child doesn't read comic books yet. She's 4.
She's 4. I have a 4-year-old and he likes Batman. I have a Batman book at home.
Yeah.
But in this recent light, I've been paying attention more and more and more to how incredibly sexual most children content is. Like, have you rewatched Aladdin lately? It's extremely sexual.
Well, yes, all the new shows have been... That's kind of our point, is everything's been sexualized, which makes people on that side go, it's everywhere, so what's the point? That is our problem.
No, that's not what the point. What the point is, it's important that they have facts and information to stay safe. Because you're right, that in an over-sexualized environment, it's not always safe for children.
Can't we agree that parents love their children more than anyone else in this world, and they'll do anything to protect their children? Every parent, except the exceptions for the rule.
I would agree that the majority of parents love their children and want to protect them, yes.
So why are we putting into policy measures for non-parents, for teachers, for people in authoritative positions to take the helm of what parents always have?
Because the classroom represents society on a whole, right? Like the workplaces, the government, these meetings, these encounters.
Unfortunately.
The classroom is a microcosm of our society, yeah? And so, it's a diverse group of people with diverse families and backgrounds, and all of them deserve to feel safe and included. And so if that child has 2 dads, it should make sense that I read a story where a child has 2 dads in the story. When I read that story...
That's odd.
One kid will... It is odd because it's not the norm, right? Absolutely. But there's nothing wrong with it. And that kid...
There's nothing wrong with it.
Still loved and protected by his fathers.
But why does it need to be discussed with children?
Because it is his dad's. He's in that.
He's not going to love his father's the same if you don't read him that book.
That's a good point.
He might feel scared to talk about his home life, his dad's. He might be worried.
Why? Why would he feel scared?
Because his friends have parents who are opposed to that and teach that to those kids, and those kids aren't being taught anywhere else that it's normal and okay.
Right,
So
but
they
there's
wanna
policy.
bully that child.
Sure, but exactly. I'm glad you finished that. There's policy in place about bullying that was put in place many years ago. So that eradicated that problem.
No, how do you address bullying without actually saying like all identities are deserving of respect and protection?
Instead of hiding everything from the parent, like, sure, have a safe place. And I know a lot of people on the left or the community are saying that the kids are afraid of what the parents are going to say. So why don't we make it inclusive? Have a safe place for the child to come out to the parent in front of someone like you. If they're going to, because I hear the argument is they're going to get beat, they're going to be shamed or feared, right? That's the common argument. Why are you just shunning the parents out altogether?
We don't want parents shut out at all. We want kids to disclose to parents. We want kids to feel safe and secure at home and know that their parent is their person and disclose to them. All teachers want that. All teachers want that because that's the truth. That's the parents who have homes that you're talking about.
No.
Love and protect their kids. Are safe spaces.
No, that's an assumption. We can agree because it's human nature and universal that parents in any species, mostly, love unconditionally their children from birth to death. That's a fact. What is a opinion?
Can you take the species out of there? I'm actually a biologist. So that's not true at all. Most dads and many mothers abandon their
Well, that's
children.
why I said in most. In most.
Humans.
Okay, humans. So, having said that humans do. Well, you dragged me around my point there. I forgot.
Is your home a safe space for a kid to disclose to you if they're gay?
Well, my kid's not gay. She's 4.
Yeah, she
doesn't know anything sexual. I haven't introduced it to her.
That's not true.
It's true.
You've never seen your kid masturbate?
Are you kidding me?
4-year-olds do it all the time. They do it from birth.
Disgusting thing I've ever.
Guys, I'm so sorry, but it's true that they're aware of their bodies, and they do.
Yes, I do have a biology board that I've had for 3 years for my child.
Okay.
And I'm with my kids all the time.
Children know from an early age.
Yes, when progressive parents sexualize their children.
No.
And how did they get that idea?
Because they know they have a crush on little girls or little boys, just like you guys did. Like when you're little.
I didn't.
You're saying that it just automatically comes about.
And it feels good, and then they do it again because it feels good. That's what it is.
Well, according to biology, it shouldn't at that age.
No, that's not true.
Well, it is.
Look it up.
And the ones that
Just as a baby in the womb is a human life, that is true. Same thing.
Guys,
I'm watching.
if a little boy says he has a crush on a little girl, are you guys grossed out by that? How could he possibly know he has a crush on a little girl?
I actually, it's innocent. They think,
We don't say, great, let's set you up for a date and maybe you can sleep together.
No.
Masturbate each other?
No. Gross. No.
Right.
But so I'm saying that at that early age, just as much as a little boy might know he has a crush on a little girl, a little boy might know he has a crush on a little boy because it's the same. It's innocent. You're right.
know that.
They do know.
No, my son, they don't even think, they don't know. They know that my best friend is with a girl. They don't. That's all they know.
Yeah,
they don't ask about. They don't know what.
Yes, I'm a parent.
They don't know what.
And
this
you're
is.
okay with your
They just know that
masturbating.
She lives with
Pardon me?
You're okay with your 4-year-old masturbating?
That is an awkward question to ask another parent.
It's normal.
I did say it's normal.
And how would you know it's normal unless you've seen it?
It gives me chills. Like I cannot.
Why are you asking me this question?
You're the one that said it's normal, and I don't know how you know it's normal.
Because
Did you read it
I
in the
know,
book?
yes.
Okay. And what book is it?
Oh my goodness.
I want to know because I'd like to know who's writing these concepts.
So that you can get them pulled from the school, these fictitious books that I've never seen in the school at all. Like,
You never see it.
So these are books that are in grade schools.
no.
I didn't even want to see it.
I'm saying that the books that you guys are talking
Why
about
would we pull it?
bullying,
Why would we pull it from a
I've never seen them in the library to pull, like what you're talking about, banning these books. But the ones that I have seen that are there do identify body parts, right? Are we? Is that okay?
Teach boys how to give fellatio to other boys.
No, not
Yes.
in, no, where is that?
Where is that? Have you talked to Mr. Palco because he knows all about the books. He could educate me.
Just so because you're insisting that they're not in your schools, but
And it's easy for someone to say, Karen, of course we don't have them in the schools and you can sleep okay at night with that research. But what if? What if they were?
Okay, do you know how many children have cell phones and are wilding on the internet right now?
Well, you do have a point. Parents, progressive especially, have allowed certain aspects of things into their children's lives. So now it's normalized. So now we just say, when you say, don't you see kids going there? I will control what my child, at least for as long as I can, sees on the
In the
internet.
classroom with other kids who are on their phones.
No, they're not.
Why?
There's no class. There's no, yes. There's
There's your solution. So why are you here yelling at teachers who don't teach your kids?
I have family in the school system.
You had a sign.
I'm a taxpayer. He's a taxpayer. She's
No.
a taxpayer. We have every right to be here.
And I went to public school,
I also went to public school.
and my mother was a public school teacher and one of the best.
She have kids. Does everyone on your side have kids?
No, but we're teachers.
Yeah, I know, but you're saying they shouldn't be here?
I'm just saying it's weird to get so angry when you're not even
I'm not angry.
kids are at home. You're not they're not at
Getting
school.
sexualized and it's being indoctrinated into them. I have a problem.
They're not being sexualized at
Okay, but you
all.
just said that 4-year-olds masturbate.
They do.
Karen, I have to pull my child.
All of them. But some of them do.
I mean, I haven't met anyone. I grew up in my grandma had 14 kids. I grew up with lots of cousins.
Oh my goodness gracious. You guys are getting stuck on this. Because this is like
Exactly. I hope so.
we're not teaching this in the schools is what I'm trying to say to you right now.
Like that, and you as a teacher have the mentality that 4-year-olds masturbate. How should we feel comfortable?
Next year it will be.
They need to learn where and when that's approached.
Shouldn't that be up to the parents?
Yes, absolutely. So if a child does it in a classroom, in a kindergarten classroom, then what happens?
If they masturbate,
Yes,
You call the parents.
yes, we do. Yes, we do. And then what?
and the parents deal with it.
How do they deal with that?
They have a
Stay out of your lane.
What does that mean?
Well, it doesn't matter to you.
It does because then it comes back to my classroom again.
You don't know that yet. We're talking hypothetical. So the parent talks to the child. The parent talks to the
We're
child.
not talking hypothetical.
Okay, the parent disciplines or talks to the child in whatever way the parent does, and it's solved.
But then it's not solved often. It's not solved. And what's solved anyways?
They don't do that in the classroom.
That would be nice. That's not what's happening.
So is your position that in each classroom there's at least one student masturbating?
I don't know. Why are you guys so hyper focused on masturbation?
It's the sexualization of children,
Which we are not doing.
by saying what you said.
My point is that human beings are sexual and they need guidance
Not children though.
and they need yes, sure.
My bullhorn? Can you find it?
Yeah.
Wait. Well, I appreciate you guys talking. Thank you.
Hi. You're a mom?
Can you stop? I'm not. You're not a
It's live.
I have nothing else. I don't want to say that's not a
I don't want you talking about my 4-year-old masturbating on the internet.
Well, you brought it up.
I brought up that it is a natural thing that happens with children and you directed it onto my son.
The question, that's what.
But I would in defense, the reason why I brought it up in that way is when someone says so definitively know something, I assume it's because they've witnessed it in their own life, which is why they know it so definitively. Sure. So
But that's still a very private and personal thing that I'm okay talking about with someone who wants to learn some information, but I'm not so okay with it being broadcasted on the internet.
yeah, but if this is called the Truth Trumpet, and if something is the truth, it should be spoken loudly and proudly.
Okay, so go look it up what I told you, but I would rather you not share about my personal family, please.
Or not trying to share with your personal family, nor dogs or anything like that. I don't
You're
really-
asking me about
Well, I'm not asking your last name, and nor do I want your last name or your child's name. I wouldn't want any danger to come to you and your family. I don't think anybody would want that. That would be kind of ridiculous. So, having said that, we come from the position that masturbating children, or children who masturbate like 4-year-olds, as you stated, is not common and not normal, and children aren't sexualized, and you're in the position with the education that you have or the things you've read that they are. And for me, that's a sad state of affairs. Not that you think that, but that is the indoctrination that has happened to, well, I guess from under Generation X down, that this is what is a belief system now, that human nature follows this path.
And it's simply untrue. Unless, of course, we make it true. If we do sexualize all the children, then I bet in a decade all children will be sexualized.
No one's trying to sexualize children. That's gross.
So what if we just took sexual everything out of school and focused on curriculum?
Because that's
like the good old days.
Because like I tried to say here, I think that there's blurred lines with what people think is sexual. Like, am I allowed to
Anything.
talk about someone having 2 dads, or is that sexual?
Well, leave it for at home. Why even talk about it? What does that have to do with math?
Talk about your wife or your,
Nobody does.
Yes, they do.
Talk about math, English. Well, maybe that's the problem, that people are too social, teachers, educators, instead of doing the work.
Have you ever read a book with characters in it? Like all.
My mother was one of the best teachers I've ever seen. We were there an hour and a half before school started, hour and a half after, preparing for the next day, every day. And back then, there was nothing sexual in the curriculum. And there was one day a year when we were in grade 7 or 8, maybe, where they had sex ed. And I remember it was a laughing stock, at least for the boys. I can't speak for the girls. They kind of laughed too, actually, at some of the jokes we made.
Do you want to read the curriculum? There's literally nothing about sex in grades 1 through 3 at all.
I'm aware of what the curriculum is written down on paper.
Is geared to K to grade 2. So it's
But learning alternate pronouns is sexual.
There's no such thing.
It's what?
said it's more than just that. The book has more than just that.
Like what?
What am I saying? Look it up. Look Stockport.
What's the book called?
What are my pronouns?
Okay, I will look that up.
Also, what is it? Searching for Alaska, Push.
But those are
Something with gay in the title. Something with gay in the title too. I can't remember.
I will look it up. Okay, I'm gonna pack up my table now with my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah. I mean for the.
How you doing?
Good. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Doing an interview right now. I'm sorry.
Well, we're just doing live here, going around and saying. Glad you're here.
Signatures for that health thing too. The vitamins.
Sign it real quick, yeah. We'll sign this. Why don't you hold this for 1 second? Explain what this is.
Hi there. Oh, she.
Online library, Greater Essex County District School Board. You go on there and then you find your school and you search on book titles, then it will show you what books are in that school.
Okay.
And so then, and if you go on parentsrights.ca, that'd be parents rights basically, and you contact Elton, so you can get through to me. But you can get the list of books. Like that's the thing is that these schools, they know the list of the books that are being put out. They know exactly. It's a lie to say they don't know what is being put on their shelves in their libraries. They know exactly, and that's all we've asked for. Is say, okay, list the new releases online for 2023. Here's all the books, right? They refuse to do it. Why? What are you hiding? What are you hiding? But then when they're called out on it, they remove 2 books. But then now we started pushing it further and saying, well, there's still all these books in there. They said, stop talking about it, stop talking about it, stop talking about it. You can't. We canceled the actual agenda item, and we went there to speak. And when Linda Chin motioned to say, hey, let's have a book committee so we can review this, Nancy Armstrong asked, is this actually part of the curriculum? They're like, they never answered the question. So they're censoring the public, they're locking us out, and that's where we're at right now. That's why this is all happening. You know, and everybody on all sides should be like, hey, you can't close the doors. That's illegal. Oh yeah. Ontario Education Act, Section 207. You know, so Trustee Gail Hatfield, she is violating the Ontario Education Act. She has had an illegal meeting, and she needs to cease and desist now. She needs to fix what she's doing. But unfortunately, you have basically 2 trustees, Trustee Nancy Armstrong and Trustee Linda Chin, who are really fighting for the kids.
Who is taking these decisions? Like when I'm interfering in the curriculum of the kids. It's just like there is no educators and psychologists, child psychologists who come and discuss in Canada and talk about it. Educators, not like people are saying, okay, this has the right and this has the right. People who want to talk about the education and the mind education.
Right, reading, writing, arithmetic, yeah.
And then, like, they should talk about it together, you know, the education and the psychologists and all of this.
Well, what they do is they'll say they're abusing the Ontario Human Rights Commission to actually use that and almost have that actually become higher than the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so they're saying you're violating the Ontario Human Rights Code because you're saying that you're not going to use their pronouns, you're not going to call them by the name they want to be called, you're not going to do what we're saying you need to do according to what the flag that's being flown underneath the Canadian flag, the rainbow flag. And so people who disagree with that, those teachers are losing their jobs, is what's happening. So that's the problem, is that there should be, the students should be the top priority, but they're not the top priority. The gender politics is the top priority, right? And that's the problem, and that's what we're all here for. We're saying the children they only have their innocence once, and if you take that away from them, Greater Sis County District School Board, Trustee Gail Hatfield, Sarah Sipkar, right? And Cook and all the rest of them. If that's what you are actually going to do, not only you're violating the parents and their rightful position as the caregivers of those kids, because the Bible says honor your mother and your father, don't honor the school board. The school board's getting in the way of that. They're trying to usurp that authority, and they need to stop what they're doing. They're holding these illegal meetings, and they're not listening to the parents. So unfortunately, that's the case, and they're violating the Ontario Education Act. Number one, they got to open the meeting up. Number two, they got to let us speak and hear us. Number three, we're trying to partner with them, and they refuse to partner with us when it actually says they are accountable to the Ontario public and to parents. And in section 207 says all meetings will be public. 218 says you're going to take the feedback from the public, the parents, and you're going to share that with the board, and then you're going to act on it. And for them to actually attack Trustee Linda Chin, they're attacking her and the 3 wards that she represents, the constituents who voted her in. They're telling them all to shut up. They're way out of line. They're acting illegally. They need to stop. And in September, we're really hoping that they come to their senses and that they will actually work with us, because we want to work with them. That's truly the case. But we're not going to be shut out and shut up. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I think the Truth Trumpet's awesome. Oh, you like that? Yeah, that's a real rainbow. But I mean, people disagree on that, and that's okay. I mean, freedom of expression and what we're doing here today, that's what we're supposed to be doing, is having freedom of expression. And actually, even at our last protest, when I was calling a timeout and saying, hey, you're here expressing your freedom of expression, so are we. Could we have our say? Unfortunately, all we got was screaming and yelling back at us. So when I crossed the line today and tried to talk to people, some people, like this gentleman right here, came and spoke, and we had a good discussion. Some were like, hey, get out of here, go back to your side. I'm like, no, this is a public sidewalk, I ain't going anywhere. Police came over. I said, well, I'm not going to force the subject, but I am going to see who will engage me on this, because ultimately we have to talk to each other. And no matter what side you're on, you have to agree, or you should anyways, if even just to the Ontario Education Act, you should agree that all these meetings need to be public. That is the law they are breaking. Go look up for yourself, Ontario Education Act, section 207 and 218. What does it say? It says public meetings, and you are going to take the feedback from the public, and the board is going to act on it accordingly. And that's not what they're doing. They're censoring us, and they're trying to force people like Linda Chin, who actually has the best interests of children in mind, trying to protect their innocence. They're trying to shut her up. They have tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees trying to get her booted off the board, trying to abuse the Ontario Human Rights Code against her when she's expressing herself on behalf of her constituents who voted her in. So who are you, other trustees, to tell her that she can't speak on behalf of her constituents? They are way, way out of line. They're off the rails. We are really hoping and praying for the best from them. But again, I'll say it, like I said before, you have people of all faiths in there. And as a Christian, it says, honor your father and mother. It doesn't say honor the school board, right? And that's I think that's where I'll leave it.
Can you answer one more question I have for it? Just can you articulate for anyone that happens to be watching or here, when the trustees or school board makes an announcement via the media and states that they feel threatened, or what were their exact words, just so we have that on record?
Yeah, from what I read or saw, it was the idea that, and they even, I think, tried to use examples across Ontario. There was a bit of hyperbole, I think, as far as I'm concerned, because I have never heard, have we had exchanges where it's like they disagree with us? Maybe there's some glares and some stares that were had, a little bit of side eye happening, and some vocal disagreement. Yes, that happened. Did anybody ever threaten anybody physically in any way? Absolutely not.
And was there any like anything disrespectful or threatening said in those meetings? Absolutely not. It's on record. They know that, but they want to censor us because they don't like what we're saying. And we're not asking you to like what we're saying. We're saying we need to be heard, and you have to understand you represent the public, not yourselves, not Stephen Leche, not Doug Ford, not Justin Trudeau. You represent the people.
How many of the people?
What's that?
How many of the people do they represent?
All of them.
Thank you.
Good question.
So I was talking with the other side over there, and I'm sure you're familiar with the books on rape and everything else, promoting rape with the youngsters and everything else. Yes, yes. Some books are promote. Yes.
Do you know the names of the books?
There's Looking for Alaska, Push. This book is gay.
These are
fictional
stories. They're not.
They are fictional stories.
Curriculum being taught.
But the question is could a minor understand that it's pure fiction? And are they even of the age that they can even understand the material that's... I read some of the books. I couldn't read it. I couldn't keep reading.
No, it's disgusting.
No, it's absolutely awful what's in those books. And it's age inappropriate. But in the end, all that was being asked for, whether by Linda Chin, who's a trustee, again, representing the people, or was being asked by the speakers who wanted to speak but were shut out, is we're asking them to say, hey, we tried to take this offline. So if you had a book committee, right, that you didn't have to do it and try to have this argument, discussion, debate right there in the actual school board meeting, but take it offline, have a book committee with parents, with trustees, with whomever, right, and hash it out offline, do your research, determine a course of action, come back to the board and report it. That is the way that it should be done professionally. But instead, what they're doing is saying, shut up and leave. We're locking the doors on you. That's what they did.
When I spoke with them, they said, well, it should be taught. It should be taught. These books should be allowed because it's educational. It educates the children on rape.
Well, I guess you could take them to a strip club and educate them there too. but would any parent do that? Would any trustee do that? Would any police officer allow that? Would any parent sit by and, okay, would any bystander, if I was a stranger and I saw somebody walking into a strip club with a minor, I'm going to go up there and stop them.
That's right.
So, because I believe it does take a village and we all need to act on this. So if you're out there and you're sitting on your couch and you're, always just kind of chilling and you're checking these podcasts out and you're like, oh man, that's awful. Well, we need you to get involved. Numbers matter. When they take polls, these numbers matter. And when those two books were removed in November, that gallery was packed. It was full. And we need that to happen. But the sad thing is that these boards also know that the parents are at home taking care of the kids. They're getting them ready, doing their homework, feeding them dinner, getting them ready for bed, making sure they get a good night's rest, and they got to go to work the next day.
Wardrobe malfunctions. Have you had one?
Me? No.
Now, how do they have? I've never had one myself either. But apparently, it happens all the time. That's what they say, and it just happens. It's okay. Can you explain that? Like a school full of kids, someone's reading a book, and they get up and flop, flop, flop.
Well, those drag queen story times should never be happening.
Now, if that was me or you, we would be charged with indecent exposure, walking around some of these pride parades and everything else, exposing ourselves to these children. How come we haven't seen any of that happen?
Well, because I believe Doug Ford is protecting through the Toronto Police Department and preventing the charges from being laid. So there was actually a phone call made. I don't know, maybe you heard the phone call. Okay, where a guy called up and said, hey, so is it illegal for me to walk down the street naked? And they're like, oh, yeah, of course it is. So then they said, well, what about in a parade? And it's like, well, in the parade, it's kind of okay. And it's like, so it's okay to walk naked in a parade.
Family parade.
Where there are children present, but it's not okay to walk naked down the street. And he's like, yep, that's pretty much what. So double standard was laid.
Wow.
Wow is right. And the sad thing is you can see photos of children in front of naked men.
Of course, I've seen them.
Yeah. And so that's extremely inappropriate. It's against the law. And my question is Doug Ford, if you are such a supporter, why'd you keep your clothes on, buddy? I think Doug Ford's not all in on this. I think, Doug, you got some work to do, buddy. I think you got to go take a naked walk down Yonge Street.
All over Canada, right all over America. In what state or what province has a drag queen been charged for performing in front of children?
That's the problem. They haven't been.
That's right.
Because they're being protected by the woke theocracy. That's why.
Never illegal. It was illegal when being gay was illegal.
Okay, but what about the fact that these drag queens are violating
the dress code of the schools that they're actually in.
That's a violation of the school's dress code.
Why are they allowed in the school?
But does a violation of the school dress code mean it's intrinsically unethical?
According to the dress code, yes.
Right. Yeah, and like girls, when I was in high school, got sent home all the time for wearing spaghetti straps, short shorts, things like that. But that's teaching people. That's teaching people to.
Were you gonna say hate?
No, it's teaching kids that like boys will be boys, and boys are always going to look at women with a sexual lens, right? Why?
Could you elaborate on that?
Why isn't it taught in schools that men shouldn't sexualize women? Men shouldn't sexualize anybody else the way that they're kind of normalized.
In some schools, it is taught.
In some schools, it is taught.
My daughter's school.
In some schools, it's not.
Simpson shirt when I was a little kid with a middle finger. So
yeah,
I remember those days.
Yeah.
Who the hell are you? Was what was on my shirt.
Yeah.
But it's inappropriate. But one of the issues that, you're talking about what happened at Walkerville is that the parents weren't aware. They weren't aware of what was happening at the assembly that day. And so they could have at least chosen to keep their kid, at least at a minimum, chosen to keep their children home. Right, exactly. But they're denied the choice. So they're trying to ram it down the throats of parents and children. Right. But if, when we were talking earlier, right, we were having a good discussion. And when we were, how if that was on the flip side, right? And if you had a Christian teacher say, I need you to accept Christ as your savior right now. You think that'd make the news?
No, that happens all the time. Teachers do this all the time. In my school, in my grade school, Sacred Heart, I was told I did go to a Catholic school. Yeah. But yeah, sorry. It just feels like, I mean, there's definitely a way around it that the parents can choose to like opt their children out of reading the books, going to the assemblies, all this. But it seems to me this is also a way of like, look at how many kids were here. Like there is a message being shoved down these kids' throat, whether it's pro-gay or not, right?
This isn't about gay. It's about sexualizing children. Period.
Just like we talked about earlier, like if this was happening in a playground, those police officers would be showing up and arresting somebody, right, for what we saw in the books. Right?
I go back to the sex ed curriculum. Like I didn't know that Ford didn't get through with the holding it at 97.
His election promise was to end the Kathleen Wynne sex education. He didn't do that. He's made it worse.
Okay. So what is our sex education? Is it based off the 97 curriculum still? Is it based off an older curriculum?
And yes.
Right. So we agree that's outdated.
It has nothing to do with it. It has other material, how old the children are, but first and foremost, the parents. They're the ones, because when all this hits the fan and the child is confused and they're not even reached adolescence and are saying, are you sure you're a boy? Are you sure you're a girl? And they're confused all the way through adolescence. They start making decisions, life-changing decisions, having to do with whether it's hormone therapy, surgeries, who knows what. And then later on in life, when those people, because those testimonies are out there, and I would encourage you to go look at the testimonies, when they come back and they're suing the doctors for what they did to them, who's picking up those pieces? The parents are, and the Ontario public. It should never have happened in the first place. If you're an adult and you want to make decisions about what you want to do, I guess, people can't.
Yeah.
But, I would be happy to share my side of the story. I'm not going to sit there and say, you're an adult, I'm going to sit here and physically stop you from doing that. I would plead that you don't do it, because I think you can't take that back. And those people who have gone through that as children and have actually gotten to that stage of the point of no return regret it.
I'm sure the percentage is much lower than the ones that don't regret it. I'm sure.
We can talk data all day, but I would encourage you, go look it up. Those testimonies are sad. They're tragic. Because they can't go back in time and undo it. That's why there's legal cases against the people who.
Of course, there are people who have regretted their transitions, but there's loads more people that haven't.
How do you know that?
Are you aware of the suicide rate under transgenders? Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of the suicide rate. No.
It's very, very high. It's astronomical, actually. So I'm not sure of the exact stats, but I know it
ranks up there with war veterans and farmers, which was the highest suicide rate.
But the bottom line, all we're saying is, like, as far as parents' rights go, and just parents in general, we're saying the parents are the primary caregivers. There's no place in this world where a child crosses the institution, the threshold of an institution, or any building for that matter, where the parent gives up that authority. Biblically, that's wrong, and I think most parents just commonsensically would say that's wrong. Those children are my responsibility, and actually, the Ontario law also reflects that fact. I believe it's called the Ontario Parental Responsibility Act, where it actually says, like we were talking before, right? If the child actually commits a crime, they damage property, they go back to the parents for what happened. Well, you just set a precedent right there. You just said that those parents are responsible for what that child's done. But then when they go to school, it's like everything changes. You can flip that. You can sexualize a minor.
But them saying that them sharing their sexual orientation isn't a crime. Them sharing their sexual orientation is not a crime, though.
Nobody's saying it is, right? Nobody's saying it is, but it should be. But any sensitive topic should be discussed in privacy at home with the parents. That should be the first stop. That should be the first stop.
But what if kids don't have a good home? What if kids are in foster homes? What if
people looking from the outside in on a situation like that are being very presumptuous, right? And just because
aren't that outside, if they've grown up with the kids, they've had them for X amount of years.
Would you agree, though, your point you're making is the worst case scenario point, right? A parent that's abusive, or are you asserting that's the majority?
I'm not asserting that's the majority. I'm asserting it's very commonplace.
I think we're taking, but I mean, what I heard earlier when I talked to the gentleman from 514, where they take in, I think he said the way he referred to it was queer children who don't feel they have a safe space, or however, 12 and plus, where they've been taken in, right? So, but what he's saying is that they want to provide a safe space for them, but at the same time, it's like the parents are the ones who are primarily need to provide that safe space, and assuming that those parents have been engaged properly, I think that's a very dangerous assumption. But also, what's happening in our culture, and depending on what side of the story you're on, they look at the faith first, assume based on the faith that the child's not being listened to, and then they're saying, "Oh, government has to intervene." You say we need separation of church and state. We don't want a theocracy. Well, on this we agree, but that's not what's being That's not happening. You have it at the federal, at the provincial, and the municipal levels. They're telling parents, they're telling the public that this is what's going to be your behaviors. It is not their place to do. You want separation of church and state? Well, then I think we agree on that. Let's put them back in their place.
Yeah, I don't think that means that the schools are telling kids to be trans or gay.
But there are examples out there, and I can tell you from stories that I know of, where the teacher did ask. I think it was a young girl. She, how do you know? Questioned her. I think she was like 7 or 8 years old. How do you know you're not a boy? And she wouldn't have. And the little girl's like, I'm a girl. So it went home. The parents then had to have that discussion with her and say, you are a little girl. We were there when you were born, and we know you're a little girl. But the teacher who's an authority figure, who the child does respect, would not go back on it. And they went to the principal. Principal would not go back on it. And so then they're stuck with this child who's now confused because of a thought that was introduced that didn't need to be introduced at an age where this child hasn't even reached adolescence.
Yeah, in that scenario, yeah, I agree with the adolescence thing, like especially if you're talking about like transition surgery. That's all sorts of hormones are being messed with, and your hormones aren't even fully developed. But in this scenario that you're describing, I think there were two failures. The teacher, assuming, I don't think a teacher should go up to somebody and ask them about their sexual orientation or identity. But the parents also failed the student in this scenario by not informing them about other sexual orientations and other genders.
The subject shouldn't have even been discussed at that point in time. That's what the parents are saying. The parents didn't talk about it because the parents know the child's not ready for it.
Now it's brought up.
Right. And it should never have been. You know why the teacher did that? The teacher's backed by a woke school board. That's why.
Yeah.
It's the dog wagging the tail. they introduce it and then normalize it and then say we have to have the discussion because it's normal.
So it's never the other way around. It's never the parents saying you only have one option, and it's being straight and being the identity that you were born with.
Well, until this new science was brought into play, that's, well, it is.
This is old. This is centuries old.
According to the media you follow, I would agree that you think that. But according to civilization, God, and science, chromosomes, there is male and there is female. And of course, there are exceptions to certain rules.
The indigenous depiction of gender, right?
Elaborate what indigenous depiction of gender means.
The indigenous people that were here before us have depictions of gender that are totally different than the ones we understand today. They have multiple genders. They have people who represent
spirits.
Believe there is more than 2 genders?
No, they don't. No, they don't.
There's a lot of literature that supports it. There's a lot of indigenous history that supports it. A lot of different tribes have different beliefs.
Two-spirit.
There's two-spirit. Yes, that's kind of the umbrella term.
I don't think that's gender. Unless, of course, in today's day and age, if a spirit can embody anything, then why not choose whatever gender you want?
Taking the two-spirit term literally, that's what we use to describe all sorts of different...
I'm sorry. You're native?
Nope.
So we is...
I didn't say we.
The tape will say that you did.
Okay, continue. Okay. Okay. I'm just saying that's the umbrella term that we've come up with today. Society's come up with today.
Why are we coming up with umbrella terms?
Because we don't understand the
definitions.
And the definitions, or there's lost definitions. It's lost.
Or altered definitions. Are we altering definitions now?
I mean, yeah, sure.
So that we might be able to agree that that could be the problem. Are we altering definitions so much that people don't understand what anything means anymore, or are replacing a meaning with something that feels better to themselves and is propped up by the media and establishment?
Sure. Like, I mean, I can't speak for all indigenous people. I'm not indigenous myself, but
talking about anybody in the umbrella.
Yeah, a lot of people don't feel depicted by that term. A lot of people have terms that are brought through their history, through their families, by word of mouth, through generations, right? So a lot of that's been lost. A lot of that's gone.
What would you say to the people in the gay community who are saying we don't want to be they don't want to be associated with the what is it, the light blue and the pink on the flag and the intersex and all the rest of it? They're saying, hey, we don't want that, in our movement. We don't support that, and we don't want you sexualizing minors, because there's a lot in that community who would, I know personally, who would say we don't want that. What would you say to them?
Yes, I think there's a lot of divisiveness in the LGBTQ community in terms of that. I know a lot of bisexual people that didn't feel represented by the pride flag. So then there's a lot of gay people that were offended that bisexual people get a piece on my flag. I think that's a little, I think all the sides should sort of come together at some point.
Yeah, agreed. I think all the sides should first of all come together on the fact that the school board can't close their doors to the public. Sure. Number one, 100%. Right? So I think that's why when I was going over trying to talk to the people on your side, so I don't know what else to say, but when I was trying to go to the counter protester side, right? Yeah. But that's what I'm trying to say is like, hey, we're not here just discussing about, your lifestyle, our lifestyle, your worldview, our worldview. We're trying to say, hey, the school board cannot close its doors to the public. That's illegal.
We need a line of communication.
100%.
Everybody needs to be heard by the school board.
This is awesome.
That's all we're asking.
Amen.
No, 100%. I think where we disagree on is the grooming, the sexualization of children is not intrinsic with gay studies or sexual orientation studies.
These things in daycare centers, these books and everything else promoting it. These children can't even put a sentence together yet.
Children's YouTube videos.
Exactly.
Well, sure, yeah, I agree with you. Like, some of those books shouldn't be in schools. I think we can agree on there needs to be a better curriculum that depicts sexual orientation for children that want to learn about it.
Well, shouldn't that be
There
the
should
parents' decision?
It's tough to say that for me. I don't know where I sit on
Who
that.
gives the teachers the permission to go and push this on the children and teach them this?
What gives the teachers permission to teach them anything? Like why
Reading, writing, and arithmetic, something like that.
yeah.
That's morally neutral topics, but when you start talking about things that go directly against the say the Bible or the text that these faiths actually hold high and ascribe to, right? They actually read on a daily basis in order to live their lives accordingly, and it goes directly against that. But the parents like, okay, close the door, let me tell you the way it really is, kid. Like that is highly, extremely offensive to a parent. That's why parents show up the way they do. That's why parents are upset about this. But what you just described, right? You're like you were saying, even within the gay community, there is a lot of division. There's a lot of confusion. Well, if it's so difficult for even the people within that community to explain it, how could a teacher possibly cover that in a classroom to a minor?
Right. There needs to be a solid curriculum about it. There needs to be something.
How do you settle the curriculum when the people who would actually direct the curriculum can't even understand where they're even coming from themselves or agree with each other?
It's a political stance in most cases. It's a political stance. It's teachers don't want to lose their jobs, so they're not going to say anything about it, or they will risk their jobs to.
So it comes down to the soul of the person, the individual paycheck.
I mean,
or lack of soul.
Here's where it comes back around on the people of faith. Is that I know of a teacher who she asked to be changed from a classroom because she couldn't, in good conscience, use the pronouns the child was being asked to use because she knew the child, who was originally always represented as, say as a boy, and now wanted to be represented as a girl. In good conscience, the teacher couldn't say that she actually believed that she was telling the truth. She would be lying to the student in her conscience. So she asked to be moved out of that classroom. So now you have a teacher who wanted to be in that classroom to teach the kids, had to be relocated because of that. Now, that's not okay.
No, it's not. She gave up on the kid.
No, she didn't give up on the kid. What she believed was in the best interest of the child was to say, you're a boy and you will always be a boy. Now, and other topics, like you said, are very confusing, sensitive, and they're hard to cover. But the bottom line is open the doors, to all the school boards. You need to open their doors to the public. You're not going to like everything we say, and guess what? We don't like everything you say. But that's what democracy is. The engagement needs to happen, and they need to understand what their responsibility, their jobs. They need to understand their responsibility under the Ontario Education Act and consider the responsibility parents legally have over their children according to the law. You can't all of a sudden change that just because you want to push some woke religion really on the public. But that's what they're doing. It's rules for thee, not for me. We've seen it before. We're seeing it again, and that needs to stop. And we do not have principled leadership. And God knows, I can't wait for the next election.
You had stated that it is not a religion.
It's not a religion. It's a sexual orientation.
But when something is being pushed as an umbrella, as you put it, right, an umbrella community, it's being indoctrinated or taught or pushed, and anyone with an opposing voice is being called hateful or bigoted, then how is that inclusive and how is that tolerant?
Well, have religious communities not done the same thing past 100 years?
Well, as we talked about over there are always people in positions of power who abuse the power.
Well,
but
just in general, is the church not
No.
indoctrinating for it?
no, there are people within churches that utilize it.
Maybe not in general.
Indoctrination. So when I went to school and when I teach kids, say in Sunday school, I will challenge them. Sometimes I'll even try and trick them. I'll say, you guys try and catch me, because I want them to think critically. I believe if you ask good questions, you get good answers. So it's more important than anything that a child, when they go through school, learn to ask good questions. That's how they're going to get good answers to actually live a good life. But when they go to school and they're told this is the way it is, but then when they write a report, and they're said, oh, sorry, you fail. When a teacher says, I don't believe in that, and they're like, well, sorry, you can't keep your job. They're being indoctrinated. Indoctrination means that when you're told something and then you cannot question it. That's what's happening right now in our schools. If you question it, then you are going to be punished for not towing the line. That's wrong. That's wrong on all levels. We live in a country that is all about the freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of association, freedom of mobility, all the rest of it, right? That's what our charter is there for. Supremacy of God, rule of law. And when you go against that, you are going against the actual roots of Canada, our heritage, and why we live in a country that people want to flock to. People are crashing through our borders to get here, and into the US for that matter, into North America, because of that. But that is what is under attack. And you can see that in the laws that have been passed, the bills that have been passed.
I think kids should have the opportunity at some point in their curriculum, whether it's grade school, high school, whatever, to learn about sexual orientation, learn about the differences, even just learning about the differences that other people have.
They discover that themselves.
Well,
Why do they have
because
to be taught?
we say leave it up to the parents, and then does it ever get taught?
Yeah.
Because the only sexual orientation that gets taught is what? Is
Why can't
heterosexuality.
children grow up and learn what orientation they want to be on their own? Why do they have to be told? Why does it have to be taught?
Well, why do we teach about heterosexuality? Why do we teach about biology? Why do we teach about that? Yeah.
Actually, you know what really do us well? Education vouchers. Because right now you can only no, because right now your tax dollars either go to the public or separate school boards, and both those school boards are being led by the Ontario government into what their curriculum is going to be. But if the parents had the money for their children to choose a different option, go to a charter school, a private school, then they could actually, or to be homeschooled for that matter, right? And a lot of people are going to be choosing that, I think, near term, real quick, because if this garbage goes on in September, their enrollment's going to go down. It needs to go down if it continues. So the bottom line is that if the parents had the choice, give them the choice and have this discussion. And like what you're saying, if that's the curriculum or what these school boards want to do, listen, then open it up to the public, take all the feedback, do a poll, and you will see what the results are. And I'll tell you right now, the results are going to be the parents are the primary caregivers. They're the ones who deal with these sensitive topics, determine when it is time to discuss it, not the school board.
Last time I was in Windsor, I was talking to some youngsters, and they were being taught that there's 52 genders that they have to be appreciative of. Your thoughts on that? Can you name these 52 genders? Because
No, I can't. No, I can't name all 52.
Two have been added since that last conversation.
Is there more?
Come on.
No.
Well, I don't believe this is right. Teaching youngsters that there's 52 or 54, whatever it is, genders. Like, to me, there was always male and female. That's how I always thought of it. Whether you may be gay, you might like the opposite sex, that's not for me to judge. So be it, But when it's being taught in the schools and being pushed like that, that's when I have the problem. And the parents aren't being made aware of what their kids are being taught. It's just being pushed. Thoughts?
It's hard to know what they're being taught in school in the first place. I feel like, I mean, you know, as a parent, through the little conversation that you have with your kids about school. Other than that, it's like parent-teacher conferences. I don't know how else parents will get the information on exactly what their kids being taught. But I think trans kids and I think LGBTQ kids have made it pretty clear that they want their expression to be taught as a normal part of society, right?
When did children's opinions on what should be taught matter?
That's a loaded question. Yeah.
What if they want to learn about Transformers all day?
Yeah.
Or Mario Brothers?
They probably, if it was up to them, they probably would.
So
why would we do that? Why would we allow them to dictate what educational platforms or things that are being taught?
I think about it the same way as looking at other cultures' history and how that's taught in school. When I was taught in school, you know, we learned about the War of 1812 and all this stuff from the side of the colonizer for the most part. There was not a lot of opinion from the other side. There was not a lot of perspective from the other side, and a lot of other ways things, you know, we learned that, oh, like the fur trade, it was great. They got guns, it was great. And it really wasn't that great. It was painted over to be great, but it was a colonization act, right?
Sounds like a trade.
The way we learn about that, I mean, yeah, they made a trade at that time. It was not in their best interest, though. Either way, we should be learning like the realities about that, the realities about how gay people got rights in this country and in America, how trans people got rights in this country. I think all that stuff should be taught. I think that all lends itself to the opportunity of children discovering their own sexual orientation.
But if that were an elective, say that's an elective in high school, college, university, right? Then take the class if you want. If somebody wants to teach it, go learn it. And you'll be able to tell by who actually enrolls in that class how popular it's going to be, right? And so then let the market, so to speak, determine. But if we're not going to allow kids to handle guns, drugs, alcohol, cars, motorcycles, all the rest of it, right? How is it that we're going to allow them to go and experiment sexually, possibly end up pregnant, with the disease, and actually, so to speak, set the course of their life on fire? Because all of a sudden things are going to change overnight in a heartbeat. And then but now, by allowing them to do that, the people who have actually encouraged that behavior, guess what? They're nowhere to be found when that child now is in trouble, who's now a father or a mother way ahead of their time and don't know what to do. Who's there to help them? I guarantee you, the school board, Stephen Leche, Doug Ford, Justin Trudeau, they're AWOL. They don't give a rip anymore. They're just pushing their wokeism on you. And the parents are the ones now who have been blindsided by this, who are the ones who are stuck with that situation and those children. It's not that it's not recoverable. It's not that it's the unforgivable sin. But hold on. But there is a responsibility on the people who actually taught those children that. And that's why the Bible has a verse about the millstone and what happens to people who do that to children. And I encourage you to read that. It's a serious warning. You do not isolate children, mislead them, and cause them to sin. Because that's what you're doing when you do that.
I think it's the worst sin. One of them.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and grade all the sins, Stephen, but you know, a sin is. But the whole point is I think you understand where I'm coming from. If you go and you mislead somebody and say, let's say somebody walks up to the child and say, "Hey, go play in traffic. It's cool. It's fun. Let me show you this game. It's called Frogger. And if you can make it from this side of the street to that side of the street, I'm going to give you a chocolate bar." And that child gets hit by a car. Guess what? The guy who taught him that is going to be AWOL. And the parents are going to be the ones who are going to be praying to God that child survived getting hit by the car. It's the same thing that's going on with playing with a child's sexuality at an age where they are not ready for it. Because if all of a sudden that goes off the rails, that child can't go back in time and undo it. And the parents are the ones who are going to be there trying to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, it's well, you said like kids getting pregnant and stuff. That happened in my school. I'm sure it's happened in your guys in grade school. I'm sure it's happened. And I'm sure you would probably agree that this whole wokeness thing wasn't as big then. It wasn't as big when I was a kid. It definitely wasn't as big when you guys were kids. I don't think teaching kids about different sexual orientations is going to lead to that. But I don't think whether they teach it or not leads to that.
Reading to some people who they didn't want to listen to it, but it's said in there, it actually explained, and for the sake of the viewers maybe not wanting to hear the words, it actually said rubbing, kissing, licking on there. Okay, so it is not just a neutral representation of genitalia. It is saying this is what you can do with that genitalia and how you can have different experiences and experiment and just go have a good time, kids. But that is like saying like, you know, hey, you should go in this rocket ship and just take off, and you know, hope you got your parachute with you, and if you don't, whatever. But it's reckless behavior is what I'm getting at. It's saying,
I think the reckless behavior comes anyways. It's almost intrinsic in children.
Why hasten it?
I don't think that teaching them about homosexuality hastens it. I don't think teaching them about trans kids will hasten.
Topic that even the people in that community have difficulty explaining. How could you possibly have a teacher all of a sudden throw in a half an hour of, hey, by the way, and then move on? The child's just going to be left with more questions than answers, and they're going to be like, I don't even know what to say about this. And before you know it, they could be making decisions that they wouldn't have been making if it had been actually presented by the parents at home in a nice, calm, quiet situation where they can actually just have that discussion, say, this is what it is, what questions do you have, and have that exchange, because that exchange isn't going to happen in a day. It's going to happen over months and years.
Yeah. And the age is depicted, by the parent should be the appropriate age, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%. That's what we're getting.
Because as we know, children can develop differently at different ages, right? Height, brain development, milestones. It happens at specific general times, but every child varies.
So when should we teach kids about any sexual orientation in school? When should it happen?
I mean, like I think I mentioned earlier, I teach Sunday school, and if a child came to me and had questions of a sensitive nature about whether it's about their sexuality or something else, I'll say, hey, we do teach from the Bible that their parents bring them to the church. We do teach from Genesis that God created a male and female, and that's the way that it is. And if that child has a deeper question about it, I am not going to sit there in that classroom and have that conversation with that child. I'm going to say, these are good questions that you have. There's no reason to, feel ashamed about what you're asking, but there is an appropriate people and place for that discussion. That's your parents and at home. And so then when the parents came to the classroom, I would say, hey, little Johnny or little Sarah had these questions today. Maybe later on you'd like to talk to them about it. And that's up to the parents to do.
That's exactly how it should be handled, in my opinion.
Yeah,
As well.
and I'll tell you right now, when I look at these books, if somebody ever asked me whether I'm paid or not to teach that to a child, I'll say, hell no, you can have the job. I'll find something else to do. And that's what these school boards should do. That's what these teachers should do. If they are being forced to do this, go find something else to do. God found you that job in the first place. He'll find you another one. I've been in that situation before where you got to make a call. Are you going to do the right thing, or are you going to roll over because you want a paycheck? And now is the time for people to decide what they're going to do. And I say, do the right thing. Let God take care of the results.
Well, we can all agree that this should be left up to the parents. Am I correct? Parents should be left aware or made aware of being taught in the schools.
I came here questioning that.
Mm-hmm.
I am still questioning that. I still don't know whether or not we should be pushing for a normalized curriculum to teach all sexual orientations, because for me, I just learned about one. So if I'm listening to you guys, we shouldn't be teaching about any of them, right?
I have a proposal. So right now you have charter schools, private schools, home schools, right? You could also have schools where you want to teach a certain curriculum, something different, right? But a public school board should be neutral. They're a public school board. They should be neutral. Right. So if there is a group of people who want to fly the rainbow flag at their school, could they not open their own school and do their own thing on their own time with parents who?
So gay people in their own school.
Well, no, if they actually want to teach, because what I'm getting at is that it's not morally neutral. It's not morally neutral.
Well, that's pretty clear. People have a different idea of morality. Exactly. Morality is subjective.
So you wouldn't want a pastor to go to a public school and teach that the Christian faith is the only way, because that's what the Bible says, right?
Right.
The Bible is very clear about that, right? That Jesus is the only way. I presume you wouldn't want that to be taught in a public school. Right. So, but the woke religion or this gender identity politics is what's being taught in the public school that should be neutral. It's not neutral. So then I say, go start your own school, just like everybody else has.
Why is it not neutral?
Biblically speaking,
it's based on the belief
faith,
system, right? Yeah, 100%. A different belief system will believe something else.
Well, our society is based off of Judeo-Christian values. Everything.
Well, as far as religions go, they're a set of values, beliefs, and principles that people follow that shape their decisions on a daily basis. What they do, what they support, who showed up here as counter protesters, who showed up on the other side, people of faith, of a different faith, I would say, right? And so yes, it is a religion because it's something that you practice as a lifestyle and it guides their lives. It's how they shape what they do.
Yeah, I still disagree with that. It's that would be saying your heteronormativity is also a religion. Are you guided by the fact that
You're right.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Genesis 2.
but you're guided by the Bible telling you that's your sexuality.
Exactly.
You're not guided by the sexuality itself. So saying that
correctly. 100%.
okay, so how is gay, trans, LGBT, how is that its own religion then?
Pardon me? How is his own religion?
Well, because it's a pursuit or interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance. It's one definition of religion. You guys,
Sorry. I do better reading.
Right there at the bottom.
Of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods.
A pursuit or interest to which someone
Oh, the
ascribes
third
supreme
definition.
importance. Yeah, obviously religion would be it's a belief in and worship of superhuman god or gods.
Well, in that
right? But
you could say people are religious about anything. If someone's addicted to video games, they're religious.
People can idolize anything.
Yeah.
I can idolize that.
But does that mean we treat, say, addiction as a religion?
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, if people are what they
wrap their minds around, what they're actually worshiping are those drugs.
Right.
That is what they're saying. What I need to
sorry.
earn my money for and spend my money on is to get my next high.
Oh, you won't be able to.
So they're idolizing that drug.
And their behavior is functioned off of a lot of.
So it shapes. So it's their lifestyle.
So are different drug addicts treated differently from other drug addicts in terms of treatment and recovery?
I think we're going off the rails here a little bit.
The gay pride flag is flown for a reason. It represents a group of people, what they believe, what they value, and their principles, and how they think that people should run their lives, and what is the right thing to do. People disagree with that, and that's okay. And it needs to be okay, right?
People don't have to even gay people at all.
Sure, exactly. But the whole point to come back to though is
is that yes, I would say within your community, maybe it's and I mean this as a description, not as a slight of any kind, but it's tribal. You guys believe what you believe. It's not necessarily written down in any one place, but this is, you believe that
Well, it's on both sides.
Right. But we have the Bible.
Right, but everybody interprets it in a way. I mean, it's been rewritten by the main four, right?
The Bible is the inspired word of God.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's been canonized, yes, but the historicity of the Bible is higher than any other document that's ever existed, and there's a reason why the Bible's never listed on any bestseller list, because it blows them all away. But that's a whole other topic. But the point being is that the flag represents a group of people, right? Their system of values and beliefs, and what they believe is most important. Right. That's why they're fighting. That's why they're fighting for it.
Well, it represents sexual orientation. Now, how does that have anything to do with the children? Why should that be flowing in the classrooms or on school property or anything else? Shouldn't the Canadian flag be inclusive for everybody? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. When I see that flag, I'm like, why? I respect it and everything else. I would never do any trample. I've seen that happen and everything else. But still, it represents sexual orientation at the end of the day.
Sure.
And why should that be flown in the schools, especially without a Canadian flag being anywhere on the property?
If you want me to play devil's advocate, you don't think those communities have been classically or generally misrepresented or oppressed in the past?
Of course they have. But I respect all genders and all races, and I have I've never had any problems with the gay or lesbian community whatsoever. Right. I have friends that are gay and lesbian. So
there might not be a straight flag, but those people who are represented
flag either, because I don't agree with flying anything that represents a sexual orientation. I think the Canadian flag should be inclusive for everybody.
Amen.
So
I understand that.
The bottom line we're getting at is that people can freely express themselves.
Yeah.
in different ways in Canada, as long as you don't encroach on somebody else's rights and freedoms, obviously, right? But go ahead and do so. But if you're in a public school board that should be neutral on all such topics, but is not being neutral, that's why we have a problem. So if there was a school that is a Christian school, a Muslim school, right, whatever the school might be, and then if people who fly the rainbow flag, so to speak, then they can have their own school. But why does a public school have to be used to force it on the children who attend there?
I don't think flying a flag forces anything on anybody. I don't think it does.
It represents sexual orientation. Now, why does it have to be in the schools?
Because these people have not been treated fairly through history, and still today there's
Black History Month or anything else. Why don't we have flags for everybody then?
I agree. We should definitely have a Black History Month flag. I don't see the problem with a Christian school flying a Christian flag.
Exclusive for everybody, like
public school.
There's Christians in there, and that sign over there says "Every child matters." Then shouldn't there be a Christian flag up for a month or so?
Then shouldn't there be an Islamic flag as well next to the Christian?
Shouldn't we make more months?
So that's why
we need a lot more months.
That's why certain school districts have said the only flags they'll fly are either federal, provincial, or municipal, and that is the cleanest way and easiest way to do it.
Yes.
Just fly the federal, the provincial, or the municipal flag, and get on with life.
And that represents everybody.
Exactly.
Yes. Which, by the way, is stated. That flag over there, the Canadian Bill of Rights, it reaffirms God's laws.
Yeah, I guess like the devil's advocate in me would say it's reparations. It's these people are still classically being mistreated in these environments. There's still a lot of hate. There's still a lot of people saying a lot of derogatory things.
But when people protest and people who are being roughed up, being dragged around, pushed around, it's not the people in the gay community. It's the ones who are coming there and protesting, who are on a public sidewalk.
And I mean, yeah, there's been lots of scenarios since before COVID on